Hello and welcome everyone. In previous videos, we've talked about the rift between science and religion that certain people have insisted upon. We talked about the killing of Giordano Bruno and the silencing and arrest of Galileo Galilei. Now, I've mentioned previously that the goal here isn't to call out anyone of any particular religion, but to get to the truth and examine history to see just where things might have gone wrong. In order to do that, we have to be fair and examine examples of what people have done or said in the name of other religions as well, because they perceived that science was a threat to their beliefs. So now I'm going to add a little something to the mix that you might not quite expect. Are you wondering what that might be? Please stay tuned to find out. I've mentioned that people have said and done some pretty outrageous things in the name of preserving their religious belief system in the face of evidence that contradicts their own interpretation or belief. And if we consider religious leaders themselves from various faiths, when scientific evidence didn't or doesn't agree with their interpretation or belief, then the only choice for them, rather than just admitting that they are wrong, is to refute the evidence and come up with some of the most fantastic scientific theories of their own that you could ever imagine, to fit their interpretation, to fit their beliefs, to convince their followers that they are right, no matter how far-fetched these theories are. The Catholic Church, for example, rejected the idea that Earth revolved around the sun, but today they acknowledge their mistake, perhaps because they feel compelled to, perhaps because they don't want to lose their followers, or perhaps because some recognize that they were in error to think otherwise. But now, let's look at what a prominent conservative Sunni Muslim scholar and leader of the Salafi movement had to say about the idea of Earth orbiting the sun. Muhammad ibn Uthaymeen was a Saudi Arabian scholar, and questions that he was asked along with his answers are available on his website, ibnuthaymeen.net. This particular Q&A that we'll discuss here was translated to English. He was asked about the meaning of this verse from the Quran, from the chapter titled The Ant, verse 88. And you see the mountains, thinking them rigid, while they pass as the passing of clouds. It is the work of God, who perfected all things. The question Ibn Uthaymeen had been asked was, is this verse evidence of Earth's orbit? He responded and essentially said that based on this verse and a religious account in which the question was asked, do you know where the sun goes? He said that it is the sun that orbits the earth. But saying that the sun orbits the earth wasn't quite enough for Ibn Uthaymeen. He went on to say that every believer must believe this is true, and that the rotten theory of Earth orbiting the sun would not stand the test of time. He went on to say further that alternation of night and day is not caused by Earth's orbit, but by the sun's orbit of the Earth instead. Ibn Uthaymeen was saying this in the 20th century. The 20th century saying that Earth orbiting the sun is a rotten theory that won't stand the test of time and will be buried by time. And some of his followers to this day back what he has said in the face of all the evidence to this day, to this very day. And what is their insistence that he is correct in the face of all of this evidence based on? It's based on his interpretation of the Quran and religious accounts, ignoring the insurmountable evidence that is available to us today and was even available at the time of Copernicus and Galileo. Simple but compelling observation. Now that's something to really think about. It's unfortunate that a person takes on the responsibility of issuing religious rulings based on misinterpretation of Scripture. The result is simply exploitation of the followers of these religious leaders who believe in them and don't question or examine the evidence for themselves. And if you're thinking that Ibn Uthaymin is the only religious leader who made this claim, he's not. Abdul Aziz ibn Abdullah ibn Baz, who lived from 1910 to 1999, was also a religious leader, a Saudi Arabian scholar, and part of the Salafi movement. He said pretty much the same thing as Ibn Uthaymin said. He said, "As for the rotation of the earth, I have denied this and explained the evidence that confirms its falsehood, but I do not declare those who believe that it does to be kafirs or disbelievers, but I do so for those who say that the sun is static and does not move. This is because saying so contradicts the explicit texts in the Quran and the authentic Sunnah, which confirm that the sun and the moon run on their courses." This is a fatwa or ruling of his from 1977 that is currently on his Arabic website. By saying that the sun moves, he is saying that it moves around the earth like the moon orbits the earth. That is because he believes that the earth is fixed in place and doesn't orbit anything. So the only way that night and day could occur, according to Ibn Baz, is for the sun to orbit the earth. This is just like Ibn Uthaymin, who was mentioned earlier. Now note that Ibn Uthaymin declared people who don't accept his fatwas or ruling that the sun doesn't move, as he says it, to be disbelievers or kafirs, because he says that people who don't agree with his interpretation are contradicting the explicit text in the Quran and authentic Sunnah, or the religious accounts that are authentic according to him. So we're seeing here that a religious leader who is a fallible human being is willing to declare someone a disbeliever in this manner because according to him, they are refuting religious scripture. We'll see another declaration similar to this when we look at his statements about evolution. And someone who is declared a disbeliever in the world of people like Ibn Uthaymin don't meet a pleasant fate. Now, where have we seen this before? And this isn't just a view from the distant past. And if you think that this idea that the earth doesn't rotate or orbit the sun, rather the sun orbits the earth, is no longer perpetuated, you might be surprised to know that in 2014, Saudi cleric and member of the Saudi Council of Senior Scholars, Saleh al-Fawzan, was asked, "Does the sun revolve around the earth?" He replied, "There's no doubt about it. The Quran says the sun runs," and so on. Nevertheless, they say that the sun stands in place and the earth moves. He goes on to say that a Muslim has to follow the Quran and can't follow modern theories. So here is another instance where misinterpretation of Scripture results in insisting upon a contradiction between science and religion, which we want to show does not exist. And that's what we've set out to do and will continue to do in future videos. So please like and subscribe if you'd like to find out what we'll be coming up with next. And please remember that we're not here to mock anyone. Everybody is entitled to believe what they want to believe. Until next time, take care.